Good morning. I'm Alisa Zee. Thanks so much for spending your Sunday morning here with us. You're listening to the Sunday edition, and I have a guest in my studio today who's going to enlighten us. Ha ha, Craig, no pressure, but he's going to enlighten us about Easter seals. That's something, Easter seals I've heard of since I was little, I believe, and I think I probably have the same misconceptions or lack of perception about Easter seals as so many other people. The Miracle League is all I really know. So Craig Sharum, see, I stumbled on Craig, not on Sharum. How was that?
Though. You got it.
Is here, and he's been with Easter Seals, about 10 years, you said?
About 10 years, yeah.
Man, oh man. What brought you to Easter Seals, and where were you before?
Yeah, I was actually working in for-profit world before I came into the nonprofit sector. It was, I worked for an entertainment marketing firm. I was marketing film and television, and I was...
For what firm? Are you allowed to say? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Absolutely. It was a company called Anchor Bay Entertainment, and Anchor Bay was part of the Liberty Media, so they had the Stars cable channel.
Yep.
And we would kind of handle the home entertainment releases for their properties. So a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays, and gotten into the streaming world and of Amazon and or of
all of the Netflix and Hulu.
Yeah, all of them.
Yes.
And so I was out of town. I was in Dallas, Texas, and I was trying to figure out if what I was doing was making a difference in the world. I was at a convention, and I had seen an individual with a disability kind of struggling to make their way through the crowded lobby and trying to get their way from point A to point B. And the whole flight home, I could not stop thinking about this poor man's inability to navigate this. So I got back here in Detroit, and I thought, well, let me look something up and see if I can find something that really hits to what I was looking to do. And Easterseals was there, and they happened to have an opening for a marketing position, and I threw my name in the hat and got lucky, and I've been there 10 years now.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to teach you a Jewish word today, a Hebrew word.
Okay.
Besheret.
Okay, Besheret.
It means it was meant to be.
Yeah, it was definitely meant to be, for sure.
Now, when you said, okay, I'm leaving what I've been doing, jumping into something new, I'm sure for your heart that felt fantastic. What was your wife's reaction?
Well, she was a little nervous because I had such a
you were successful with Anchor Bay.
Yeah, we were doing some great things and really making some progressive steps in what we were doing, and it was very innovative. And I think she was like, I trust in what you're doing. I guess go for it. And so it ended up being a learning lesson. At first, trying to adjust to just the terminology in the world of nonprofit, but Easterseals has been around for so long and been part of the community for, at this point now, over 100 years. The history and the difference that they were making in the lives of the people that were coming through the doors was just so inspiring, and just to be part of that was fantastic.
We don't see a lot of advertising or public service announcements about Easterseals. We all watch the TV commercials with the kids at St. Jude and at Shriners. But like you said, Easterseals has been around for decades, and for a century or more. Can you share a little bit of the history? Because some of us grew up with it, others may not be familiar at all. Yeah,
sure. So the organization started as a Crippled Children's Society, and back in 1920 was when it started. And our founder was a man named Edgar Allan. And what happened with him was that he was a businessman in Ohio, and his son was hit by a streetcar and passed away. And he was looking into the reasoning behind maybe why his son, if there was anything that was done that could have saved his son's life, was kind of his line of questioning. And they said if there was a hospital in town, there's a great chance that he would have survived because of the travel at that time. This was in 1907, so traveling was very difficult. It caused him to pass away before he could get medical treatment. So he dedicated some time to building a hospital in that town. He said, I'm a businessman. I am going to focus on this. And so he started building this hospital. And in doing so, he toured a lot of local hospitals to see what they did, what they could improve upon for his hospital. And he noticed that in every place that he went, children with physical disabilities were kept in a completely separate part of the hospital. And he would always inquire about why these children were there. And he was always kind of given the same answer, which was, well, it upsets the other patients. there was such a negative connotation to it. And a lot of these areas of the hospital didn't have windows, didn't have bright lights. They were definitely, some of them were in the basement of these hospitals. And so he shifted gears and thought, okay, I got this hospital running. I'm going to focus on starting an organization that allows children with disabilities to, one, be children, let them have the same experiences, but also if they're treated this way by society, which a lot of people with disabilities were at that time, what kind of reason would it be to get up and go out every day if you're constantly felt as if you were lesser than? And so he started the Crippled Children's Society in 1920, and we were one of the first affiliates, Michigan, because of our close proximity to Ohio. And so we worked with a lot of business leaders here, and we started our affiliate at that point. And in the 30s, they were looking for a marketing campaign. This is where the Easterseals comes in.
Okay.
They were looking for a marketing campaign, and they knew about Christmas seals, which were very popular at the time. And what they were was similar to like a Hallmark golden seal that you would purchase. You would go and give money to the organization and purchase this to seal your cards with, the back of your cards. And so they said, well, Christmas is already taken, so what's the second largest card-giving holiday in the country? And they said Easter. And they said, well, we're not really a religious organization, so Easter, does that work for us? And they said, well, Easter's in the spring, and spring is about hope and new beginnings, and that's at the heart of what we do. And so they said, okay, let's go for it. And what exploded our popularity was that the president at the time, Roosevelt, had polio, and it was kind of not a well-known thing. He kind of kept that a secret. And so when he learned about what we were doing to help children with disabilities, he jumped on board for it. So once he kind of gave his blessing to this being a great marketing campaign or a great organization, it really took off for us, and we never really looked back. And in the 60s, we actually changed our name because we were at that point we were serving much more than children. We were serving adults as well, and so we got rid of that name and went with Easterseals.
That's a great story, and I'm thinking back. My dad, who recently passed, but when he was a kid, he had polio. And they called it infantile paralysis back then. And he was viewed as a cripple. I mean, even the name, Crippled Children's, before it became Easterseals, that now, I mean, we wouldn't use terminology like that now.
Yeah.
But my dad has told us over the decades many stories of how he was treated because he didn't walk like everybody else did. He didn't move like everybody else did. His father's business was decimated because nobody wanted to come to the business owned by the father of the crippled kid with polio. Do you know if the hospital in Ohio is still there or what it was called?
I believe it is. I don't remember the name of it.
I'm curious.
But
I'll look it up. I'll make a note to Google it.
Make a note. Yeah, check it out. We were very involved in a lot of the polio treatments. In fact, it was such a community-built organization that wherever we were in, whatever communities we were in, luckily we had a lot of major leaders that participated, and we built Iron Lungs, and we have treatment, and we help fundraise for Iron Lungs in hospitals. We were very involved in that. And we have kind of a similar time. My grandfather had polio and experienced a lot of the same, probably the same sort of public ridicule that happened at that time. And that was part of the thing that Easterseals always tried to kind of obliterate, was that stigma associated, not only just for the children that had the disability, but for the parents as well. Because a lot of times they were, when their child was born, if the child had a disability, they kind of said, well, here you go. I don't know what to tell you. That was just not going to fly for us as an organization and for our founders. And so that's been the one thing that we continuously try to put out there, and everything we do is that we are about making sure that people with disabilities have a voice and understand that they also are very, very important. And so what's really cool about our organization is that we've changed so much over the last 100 years to now do a lot with mental health treatment, because the word disability still has such a stigma associated to it. And we're trying to kind of bust that as well.
How many different programs are there? I mean, it sounds like there are lots of great pockets of focus, and I'd like to talk about some of them. Pick one you'd like to talk about first.
I think the largest one that we've seen grow tremendously, especially over the last several years, has been the mental health treatment. That has been something that at one point, especially during the pandemic, we were getting, I want to say it was like 700 calls a week of people trying to get mental health treatment.
Compared to
about 100 or so. Yeah, it increased tremendously.
Boy, which is not surprising.
Not surprising, because I think people were starting to understand, I think mental health, where it's different from physical disabilities, where you can see those disabilities.
Yep.
You may be aware that you have a disability if you have a physical disability. With mental health disabilities, you don't know. And so when you tell somebody, well, you have generalized anxiety disorder, they think, well, everyone's got anxiety, or everyone's got stress,
right,
or everyone's depressed, or and they don't realize that that may be true in some capacity. There's also a limit of how much you could kind of endure before you cross that line into having something that prevents you from being able to accomplish the tasks and goals. And that's what we're about. We're about setting goals and then helping people to accomplish them. So
if somebody needs assistance in the mental health realm, let's say a loved one, or it could be that person themselves, if they were to contact someone at Easterseals, would they be guided to another organization? Are there people on staff at Easterseals who would help? How does the flow chart work?
Yeah, sure. So we have about 900 employees, and that includes doctors and nurses, and some of our locations have pharmacies right built into them to help with ensuring that the individuals, if they have transportation issues, can actually go to the pharmacy right then. They don't have to worry about trying to get transportation somewhere else. But yeah, we can help them. If for some reason we don't offer a service that they're looking for, or we feel for us, we're outpatient, so sometimes people will need inpatient treatment, we can definitely refer them. I kind of call us the Avengers. That's kind of the terminology I use, where we have a number of really great partners and providers that we team with, and we're all very much committed to the community. So if someone comes to us and it might be something that they need help with housing, we don't, as an organization, provide that sort of assistance, but we know so many different organizations that do, and we're friends with them, and so we kind of together align to provide that service. So yeah, we always say call our number. It's 1-800-75-SEALS, and if we can't help you, we can definitely guide you into a place to help.
It's a great number, 1-800-75-SEALS.
That's right,
SEALS. That's fantastic. Does Easterseals have hospitals?
We do not have hospitals. We have a number of locations, and we've really stepped up our co-located sites with schools. So as we started to see a need in schools for mental health care and those sort of similar, whether sometimes it's kids dealing with bullying, sometimes there's a lot more going on as well, we can provide those services. So that has been growing tremendously.
I'm so glad to know that these services are available. And I don't think we have more people with mental illness now than we did before necessarily. Over the years, I've been hearing steady, it's about 1 out of 4 people.
Right. That's exactly right, yeah.
That's a lot of our population. Yeah. And the biggest task at hand is obliterate the stigma so that we can make sure that the right people get the right kind of help. So to know that there's very close affiliation with schools is critical. I look at my own kids who are all grown, but I look at what they lived through and what some of their classmates had gone through. And then I go back a few decades and look at what I lived through and my classmates. And I think, wow, if only we could have talked about this.
Sure. Yeah.
The outcomes maybe eventually would have been the same, but we would have had better tools to manage what is thrown at us, whether we're the student, the teacher, the parent. It's an entire team. We're going to pause for a moment. When we come back, I'd like to talk more about the programs offered by Easterseals and MORC, which is not just half of a comedy team on a sitcom of Mork and Mindy. We need to talk about MORC when we come back. So will you stay with me, Craig?
Absolutely.
I am here with Craig Sharum. We're talking about Easterseals. Let's see if I remember that phone number, 1-800-75-SEALS.
That's perfect. That's it.
A+ for me
Nice.
today. Thank you, Craig, for the work you do, for everything Easterseals does, and for helping to shine a light on all of that this morning. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
And I thank all of you for spending your Sunday morning here with us. Once again, I'm Alisa Zee. You're listening to the Sunday Edition. Good morning. I'm Alisa Zee. Thank you so very much for spending your Sunday morning here with us on the Sunday Edition. And I want to say thank you to Craig Sharum with Easterseals for spending a large portion of his Sunday morning here with us as well. Thank you, Craig.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I've learned a lot about Easterseals. I loved the history lesson.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's a great one, and it's so inspiring to go into work and see these differences being made every day and hearing these great stories. And we have a wonderful kind of pipeline of getting these success stories of people sharing those, and it's wonderful.
Tell me one. Tell me a story.
Oh, well, so we talked about mental health services, but we also do a lot with autism. And I remember because autism is a spectrum disorder, sometimes you have varying degrees of the way autism displays
Sure,
itself.
they say if you've met one person with autism, you have met one person
That
with
is exactly
autism.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. And so some children are nonverbal. And as a parent, I can imagine it being very difficult to
yes.
have a child that you feel that you just are struggling to kind of have that level of communication with. And we work really hard to help provide services for those individuals and try to, like you said, you meet one person with autism, it's one person. So we really cater the services to those individuals
Sure.
on an individual by individual basis. And we had a child that came in and was nonverbal, and we had worked with him and worked with him and worked with him. And the mom was telling the story, and she said, then last week, I dropped him off at school like I do every morning, and I just opened the door and I said, I love you. And he said, love you too, Mom, and then jumped up and shut the door. And she said, I sat in the parking lot for like 15 minutes trying to just grasp the idea that my son just, one, told me he loved me, which is the first time she'd ever heard that. And then also that he did it so naturally, like he just jumped out of the car and went to go have his day at school. And
my heart.
Yeah, it was just like one of those great stories, and those stories are so wonderful to hear, and they obviously get relayed back to the team that worked with him.
Sure.
But those are great. I mean, we during the pandemic, we had to adjust so quickly because we didn't want anyone to go without services, and so we adopted telehealth, and we were already working on it, so we just kind of had to expedite the process a little bit. But we were really stumped on how we were going to do our autism services through telehealth.
Right.
And we did our first. So one of the things that families with children on the spectrum have difficulty with is potty training. It takes a much longer, much longer to do. And we were working with this one individual, and he was making great progress. And then the pandemic happened, and so we did a virtual potty training session. And we were on. It must have been about it was about 8 hours. The team member from Easterseals worked with the family and potty trained them through telehealth, which was amazing.
And you know what? If somebody had to pick one thing that they didn't think could happen through telehealth, I would say potty training would be one of those things.
Yeah, it was just about not giving up, and that's kind of the core of what we do. Is we do not give up. We want to provide the services the best we can, and then evolve those services to meet that changing need, which is really cool.
Boy, oh boy. But that just proves that there's so much that can be done out of necessity, when previously we would have thought, like if someone had come to you 4 or 5 years ago and said, I have a child who needs to be potty trained, they're on the spectrum, they're nonverbal, but we can't leave the house for whatever reason. Someone might then have thought, well, I can't help you.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But necessity is, as they say, right? The mother of invention.
For sure. And we do about 80% of our services in the home. So we do go out to the individuals' homes. But yeah, that is something that for sure would have been a few years ago, something that we probably would have not found a big rush in doing or looked at really exploring.
Well, and I think through the pandemic, not that I will ever say the pandemic has been a positive thing, but through the pandemic, we have been required to make adjustments, find other ways to do things. And I think in some areas where perhaps we were getting a bit lackadaisical, it gave us a little kick in the butt to say, we can't just rest on the way we used to do things. We have to really rev the engine up and push this motor forward quickly. Mm-hmm. And there's proof.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
It works.
Yeah, absolutely. We learned a lot about what we were capable of doing during that time and ways to serve people better. So
yes,
it was very innovative practice when they suggested that they were going to do that. It was like, all right, let's see how this works.
I can't imagine.
Great.
I really can't imagine that, but that's fantastic. Well, talking about moving forward and changes, the aforementioned MORC.
Yes, MORC.
What the heck is MORC? M-O-R-C, folks, not MORC as in Mork and Mindy, M-O-R-K.
Right.
What's MORC and what's the new affiliation or absorption? What do we call this?
Right. It is definitely a merger of two organizations. It's a collaborative coupling, as you were. What had happened was, like I had said, we had opened our doors with the idea of helping individuals with physical disabilities and developmental disabilities. And over the year, we have changed those services to match the needs of the community. And we were really great at autism services and mental health services, but a lot of our services that were tailored towards individuals with developmental, intellectual, or physical disabilities had kind of gone to other organizations. And I had mentioned that Avengers-style approach. MORC was one of our partners in that. They were one of the other Avengers, and they were really great with that. And we had a lot of people that we provided services for, and then they also serve the same people.
And MORC stands for?
MORC stands for Macomb Oakland Regional Center. And we said, we should just come together. Mm-hmm. It's easier for the people we serve because we share a lot of that information. It's under one house.
Okay.
And so we really just kind of blended it. And it was really cool is the way I kind of describe it is it's kind of like having if disability services was a puzzle, there wasn't a duplicate of services. It was really filling in those missing pieces.
Okay.
So they had some missing pieces and we had some. We said, well, let's just bring this puzzle together and we can make it complete. And that's the services that we offer to the community. So it's been great in that way because we've just kind of blended it in. It just kind of folded it into the mix. So we're Easterseals MORC now, and they had a very long history. They were around 50 years before the merger, so they were around for a really long time as well. And so coming together has been fantastic.
And that's only here in Michigan?
It's just here in Michigan.
So here in Michigan, it's now Easterseals MORC.
It is right. Yeah, we served 21,000 people last year, which has been great. Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Talk about onward and forward.
Right.
Absolutely. The people served, or the clients, the patients, the families, have you seen a shift in diversity in those you're able to reach out to? Because that's another thing that obviously had a pretty bright light shining on it through the first 2 years of the pandemic, how people of color in underserved communities are not getting the care they deserve because they're falling through the cracks. Mm-hmm. And I would hope, especially with this merger with MORC, you're able to reach out, like the tentacles can reach out a little further maybe and be more all-inclusive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, coming together has allowed us to really reach into those communities because they had already had pre-existing locations as well. Now they're merged together. And a lot of our messaging and a lot of the services that we offer, we've done things like we're now considered a certified behavioral health clinic, a CCBHC, that allows us to really open the doors even wider for those individuals. So yeah, those things have been on our radar for a really long time. I think the pandemic brought it to more of a national light and spotlight on it for sure. But yeah, and we've seen a huge increase in the number of people we serve from those communities. So it's been great to give those services to the people that need them.
And that really goes back to the core mission that Edgar Allan had when he launched this. Children should not be separated out from others for any reason.
Correct. Yeah.
And I know his initial mission was because of a disability, but this is allowing you to morph out even further and say there's no child of any race, color, or creed, or level of ability or disability.
Oh, yeah. And we
should be left out.
And we've gotten into providing services for pregnant mothers to help with that bond. And then it goes all the way through senior citizens. So we help people of all ages and in different stages of their lives. And it's been amazing to see how we continue to look for where we need to spread out.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are some of the services offered for seniors?
Well, we do a lot with not just with the seniors, trying to help them to remain as independent as possible. So one of the things that we try to say is that disabilities are sometimes things you were born with, but sometimes they're things that happen through life as well. And as you get older, when I think of, if I were to take somebody and say, draw a picture of a grandma or a grandpa, they may draw them with a cane, or they may draw them with a walker. Well, those would technically be signs of a disability, right?
Yes.
Because they need those. They rely on those so that they can walk. And so we understand that those sort of things happen as well, and it can also be very scary if you start getting into certain things as you get older. And so the services are tailored for those individuals so that they can remain as independent, not just for the individuals that it may be experiencing, but for their family as well.
Their families and caregivers.
Yeah, the family is probably one of the big things that I try to say, that we provide services to the individual, but we really provide them for the whole family.
Sure. Do you offer memory care support?
There is some memory care support.
Because that's obviously becoming a greater need as we get older.
And that's a big thing, because that population is growing. And so we offer a lot of those services to help and people to be more independent and keep that independence as long as they're safely able to. Absolutely.
Right. Someone just told me that back in 1950 or so, the average age of a senior citizen moving into an assisted living facility was 65, where now it might be 82.
Yeah.
We are an aging population, to be cliche, but that also lends itself to other issues. And when we're also looking at mental health.
Right.
Especially through the pandemic, between isolation and loneliness, that can prompt more physical, emotional, and mental decline. So I would presume there's a greater need than there even was a few years ago.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from personal experience, my grandmother started seeing a psychiatrist at 90 because
Good for her.
Because she was, during the pandemic, she thought, I'm going to never see my family. Am I going to live to see us coming together again? Am I going to see my family for Thanksgiving again? Those were real, and she had a lot of worry, and those were real stressors in her life. And I was proud of her for, coming from a generation where maybe it was more of a suck it up and move on kind of generation, to realizing that she needed to speak to somebody, and it was beneficial for her.
Good.
And she's been doing great. But it was an eye opener for me to realize that there are a lot of people that are starting to experience those sort of things in their life. It doesn't matter what age you are.
Yes, exactly. I was showing my daughter, one of my kids, I was showing her a picture of my grandma 3 years younger than I am now. And I said, take a look at this picture. I said, that was my grandma. And she goes, oh, yeah, cute little old lady. And I said, she's 3 years, in this picture, she's 3 years younger than I am now. And I just got this look like, are you kidding?
Right.
I'm 65, but I don't feel like what I would have expected 65 to have been.
Sure.
But I can see how my generation and those older, God bless your grandma for recognizing, and that's another piece of what has to be discussed, whether with someone at Easterseals MORC, I have to say it correctly now, but to realize we all need help. We're all rowing this boat together, and if we don't want to row in circles, we've got to pass one of the oars to somebody else.
Absolutely, and that's a great analogy. That's exactly what it is, and there's so many great organizations that are there to help. And for us, you had mentioned the marketing part of it, and we really are on social media and things like that. But we put 97 cents out of every dollar that's donated goes into the services. So a lot of the expense that goes through doing a lot of those, we put right back into making sure that the people that we serve benefit from that.
I love that. Yeah. In the minute or so we have left, let's give a website. Let's give the phone number again. Anything you'd like to add?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. You can learn a lot about our organization at Easterseals MORC. Easterseals.org. It's Eastersealsmorc.org. And then you can call us at 1-800-75-SEALS, and we can help you in any way that you may need help or point you in a direction that you can get a resource that can help you.
And sometimes that's all we need.
That's
it's just
it. We're there.
That guiding light. And just as a reminder, MORC is MORC.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, this was wonderful. Craig Sharum with Easterseals MORC. Thank you very much for the work of Easterseals, for your dedication, and for shining a light on some of this for us this morning. I'm grateful.
Well, thank you very much for letting us get the word out and let everybody know that we are a resource in the community that's there for them. Thank you.
I appreciate it very much. And thank you all for spending your Sunday morning here with us once again. I'm Alisa Zee. You're listening to the Sunday Edition.